Have you ever wondered why you're not getting any better at mini painting? You watch YouTube videos, you practice, but still your miniatures look like shit. Well, that was me. I was stuck listening to the same advice over and over, but I always felt like something was missing. And there is this one big advice that everyone was talking about that was making my models worse. It took me 5 years to figure out what was wrong with that. I finally did, and I'm gonna share it with you. From one side, it's gonna be pretty controversial. From the other side, it's just a kind of a new spin on an old concept, or like an improvement on an old concept, let's just say. First, we need to understand what makes a model look cool and realistic. It's just painting light and shadows on our models. Simple, right? Even if our models are three-dimensional, they will look pretty flat and boring without any light and shadows, and that's mainly because of their size. So if you want better looking miniatures, you'll have to paint that. So basically what we're doing is using a 2D approach on a 3D model, like the bearded god Mikito says. Let me tell you, most likely you're doing that already without knowing it. Are you familiar with this? What about this? So these are two ways to highlight and shade your model. Are they really though? Heavy metal edge highlights certainly is not. This doesn't mean that you don't have edge highlights in reality. Sure we do, just not on every single edge. But what about washes? They run in the recesses where light doesn't hit, right? Well, yes and no. The issue with washes is that they follow the rules of gravity. Light doesn't always work like that. Just take a look at capes, for example. In the concave surfaces, the wash is gonna run and fill it in with shadows. In reality, concave surfaces have some light in the deep recess. So yeah, complicated. But don't worry, hopefully this video is gonna help. But before we dive into that, there's something really important that you'll need to do. This is the nightmarish thing that got me stuck for years. You'll need to avoid blending at all costs. It's so important. Trust me. I mean, don't trust me, trust my story. Back in 2018, when I really got serious about miniature painting, I was so eager to learn, and I tried so many new techniques like non-metallic metal, OSL, lowered brush, and stuff like that. The result was general confusion and frustration. I wish someone had told me these simple things. Learn to be comfortable painting volumes before practicing any other complicated techniques. Step back and clean up your act. And 3, very, very important, always have a good brush. Even base coating can become a nightmare experience with the wrong brush. But what does stepping back and clean up your act means? Well, it just means that you need to make your model readable. This means carefully separating all the parts with dark lining, avoiding blending in other complicated techniques that can mess up the readability of your model, and focusing on your brush stroke. Blending smoothly to transition is hard, and it takes quite a bit of time to learn and do. You need to be skilled with your brush, with the consistency, blah blah blah, a lot of stuff. So just leave it behind for a second and learn to paint volumes and to be clean. If you're trying to learn where you should place your highlights while also trying to blend the transition, having a huge light to dark contrast, it's gonna be a nightmare. It's gonna be just why would you do that? Blending done poorly ruins readability. You can still paint volumes on your models without blending. What you're gonna have to do is just lowering the value jump, the contrast, light and shadows that you'll have between your base coat and your highlight. So it's gonna have a less visual impact, but also it's gonna be really pleasing to look at. Let's get to the meat of it. How do you do it? How do you paint volumes on your miniatures? I'm gonna tell you what people told me, why this wasn't really enough to be helpful, and finally, what's the most famous tip that's misguiding a lot of painters, but it's actually kind of easy to fix. But first, you might not remember, but back in March, I went to Adepticon and I was able to place among the finalists in my category, competing against people like Richard Gray, Nicholas Mortensen, and the most loved YouTuber Golden Demon winner Ninja. Well, if you liked my entry, I have now available a PDF guide on how I did the volumes, basically all the muscle male anatomy. This is the first product that I ever tried to sell, and that's scary. And if I fail, nobody will ever love me ever again. I will die alone among cats with no rebel in the fridge. Not so drama, but yeah, check it out. The link in the description, please help me. Check the description, you'll find the link. And if you want to support me and get a pretty useful guide for volumes on male figures. So what people tell you that's really wrong? They tell you the same stuff I tell myself sometimes. Imagine a sphere, a triangle, a cylinder, yada yada yada. That's great. That's not bad advice, but it's not great either, is it? I always had an hard time going from this to this. I mean, really? It's not helpful because most of the time it remains very theoretical, so it has so many holes in the reasoning, and personally I just ended up being so confused and overwhelmed. But even worse, 99% of people, they will tell you to use zenithal light, or worse, lateral zenithal light. And the big, huge red flag in this is that zenithal lighting is just ugly. Even interior designers insist in not having like a big huge source of light in the middle of your room because the zenithal light is just ugly and unflattering. You don't see that. Beautiful shots in movies and photographs and paintings, they don't have perfect zenithal light. And here comes the new spin on an old concept. So 90% of those people, they will tell you taking a picture of your model under a lamp, it will help you identifying the main volumes. That's actually making it worse because it's gonna be A, very hard to see what's going on in the lower part of the model. B, they'll tell you to put it on a software, which sometimes can help, but sometimes you'll get even more confused. C, there is the taking a picture of the back problem, especially if you have lateral light. That used to confuse me a lot, but maybe that's at me. How do you solve this? So simple. Just ditch that zenithal light and move your light source more in front of the model, and so you won't even need to take a picture of your model. You're just gonna have to see the volumes. Zenithal light just looks ugly. The features are covered with ugly and harsh shadows. Just ditch that shit. If you put your model under a lamp but not totally parallel to the light, just like I'm showing on screen, this will make you automatically see the volumes. Also, you can take a picture if you want to, so you have a reference near you while you paint your base coat and you jump and transition for highlighting your volumes. This will work only if you follow these few simple rules. No cheating, because I will know and I'll come for you. Rule number 1, always keep in mind some of that theory while you carefully watch your model under the light. That's why that general advice I mentioned before, it's not totally useless, but only if you have an actual starting point in front of you to study volumes from. Just paint what you see with those other rules in mind, and that's it. Trying difficult light situations like the lateral one or the double source of light is gonna be very, very challenging, which of course it can be really good and fun, but also can be really, really frustrating. So my advice is really take it slow and start from the basics. And rule number 3, remember you're painting a 3D object. Very important, you kind of take a look at your models and its pose and understand the main lines that flow into the model and make your highlights and shadows move in the same direction of these lines. This is slightly more complex. I will go much in depth in that in my newsletter, so link down below if you want to subscribe to that. But other than that, lights is so fucking complicated. Even just observing it, reality can screw with your mind, because it's true, light travels in a straight line, but also it bounces around a lot. You want to wait for that, okay? Just wait. Don't think about that. Don't even go there, okay? But Alice, what about the back of the model? Jeez, chill. You just gotta imagine another specular light source in the back. The hardest part is to make it make sense in some areas, especially where the light in the back meets the shadows in the front. If you have a hard time making the back and front of the model make sense, I have another PDF, a collection. You can get both at a discount prices. Please buy so I can get money and my father won't be disappointed in me and will actually love me. Will it though?